Good evening, Hsd. It's Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. I'd like to call the Hsd School Board regular meeting to order. Melissa, would you mind taking the roll call?
Sure. Jason Giard.
Here.
Aaron Pellegrini. David Smith.
Here.
Andy Cabarrus.
Here.
Carl Hubner.
Here.
Thank you. And Pinkerton Student Liaison, Shannon Caffell. Here. Thank you. Also seated at the board table is Superintendent of Schools, Bud Thompson, and CFO, Jeff Dowd.
Thank you very much. Can we go ahead and stand for the pledge? And maybe Mr. Thompson wants to lead us? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Board members, there are a number of meeting minutes in your packets that we'd like to go ahead and review and look for a vote on. In your packets, you'll have the regular meeting minutes from May 23rd, 2023, non-public session 1, and non-public session 2 on May 23rd, 2023.
I will go ahead and make a motion to accept all three meeting minutes, the regular meeting from May 23rd, non-public session number 1 from May 23rd, and non-public session number 2 from the 23rd.
Got a motion from Mr. Giard. Do we have a second? All right. All those approved, raise a hand. And abstain.
Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa, do we have any public comments?
No, we don't have any tonight.
All right, thank you very much. All right, next up, we're going to turn it over to Shannon Caffell for the Pinkerton School highlights.
Wow, last one of the school year. All right, so boys lacrosse and the baseball team went to the championship. They fought real hard, but sadly we lost. Boys volleyball also lost too. But the track and field team had an amazing season as them, all as individual athletes and as a team all together. This past Friday we had our wet and soggy graduation ceremony. Thankfully it was postponed a little bit, but Pinkerton always puts on an amazing show, a great graduation. It was great to listen to everyone who had something to say. I'm sort of ready to do it next year, but can wait a little bit. We had 50 students volunteer in New Hampshire's Youth Day of Giving Back. They helped clean up different spots around Derry with different organizations. Mr. Soika's Contemporary Issues class also participated in a cleanup a couple days after. Recycled Percussion came and performed a free show in the gym. That was super awesome. I've seen them before. And tomorrow we start exams, so good luck.
Yeah, good luck for starting tomorrow. All right. Any questions for Shannon, board members? All right. I'm going to move right on to current business. So, first up is the 2022-2023 Hsd School Board Scholarship recipients. I'm going to review the overall summary of the selection process, and we do know that the two recipients will not be here tonight, so we'll talk a little bit about them without them here. So for those at home and listening here in person, this is a scholarship that was established in 2003. The school board here does vote on whether or not we're going to do the scholarship each year and votes to set the amounts of the award when we offer the program. However, you know, this is something that is picked by the Pinkerton Senior Awards Committee that meets in May. to choose the winners. We, the school board here, do not choose the winners. As shown in the Hsd Scholarship recipient list in the board packet, you'll see that the history of the winners that show how many scholarships were handed out each year. School board members that go back to 2002, 2003, where for the first 5 years we did have a single recipient, and then starting in 2006, 2007, we started to award to one young gentleman and one young woman for each of the scholarships. And as you can see, the progression has gone up throughout the years. Into right now, it's $1,500 per recipient. Let's see. Scholarship application forms are generated by the SAU in September, and they're sent over to Pinkerton, where the forms are made available for interested students. Applicants must be a Hampstead resident currently enrolled as a senior at Pinkerton. Student applications are due at the Pinkerton School Counseling Office in April of each year. As I said, the Pinkerton Senior Awards Committee is the one that selects the recipients. Pinkerton then contacts the SAU with the names and contact information of the winners, and the SAU then generates the scholarship checks and invites the winners to the school board meeting in June, this meeting. Like I said, both recipients were unable to attend. I know there's quite a bit of orientations going on and other things right now with students, but we want to congratulate first Jessica Dane. She does send her apologies that she could not be here tonight, as she was accepted a summer job and starts employment tonight, actually. So she's pretty busy, getting ready to work, but Jessica will be attending Keene State College in the fall and majoring in secondary education and history. Next up is Anthony LeBlanc. Again, he sends his apologies. He cannot be here tonight because he too has accepted a summer job, and that employment starts tonight. So great to hear both of them are grounded and getting right into the workforce. Anthony will attend the University of Maine Orono and in the fall, and is also going to be majoring in secondary education. So congratulations to Jessica Dane and Anthony LeBlanc. Next up, while keeping with the thought about Pinkerton, we do want to recognize and communicate our appreciation for our student liaison, Shannon Caffell, for outstanding service as the school board student liaison. You've been the student liaison for this past year, and then, as we know, you'll be here with us next year. So it'll be a good year running. School board is presenting you with a gift card to Barnes & Noble, and we want to say thank you very much. Your participation and updates are very helpful, and I know that I've had a couple of parents that have listened to the school board meetings, and they've learned more from you than their own students and children. So keep up the good work. I know some more parents that will have children at Pinkerton next year will be looking and relying on you for updates and then quizzing their own children. So thank you very much, and we hope you have a wonderful summer that starts in about 96 hours or so. But thank you. All right. I'm going to move on to the next one is about the grade 8 Chromebook gift. Mr. Joe Dion will step up.
Your journey at Hampstead Middle School will donate. We will donate the student Chromebooks as a gift, and the Hampstead School District is seeking school board approval to continue this tradition of passing off their devices for the 4-year journey, so they can take them home with them and keep them.
And I believe, Diane, this year is a little different, the process to the Chromebooks?
Yes, the process is a little bit different this year. This year we're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of handing them out to the students, we're going to have the parents pick them up at the school from 8 to 4 on Monday, June 19th through Wednesday, June 21st. And if those times do not work, they will be in the front office of Hsd Middle School through the end of July for them to pick them up at their convenience during the office hours, which are 8 to 3. And on August 1st, the Chromebooks will be turned over to the tech department that are not picked up, so we can reuse some of those components like the screens and keyboards for repair during the year.
And if parents decide they don't want them, they should just communicate that so you'll know ahead of time, or?
Yes, they can communicate that to me or the front office.
Okay. Thank you. Board members, any other questions? All right, then I'm looking for a motion to allow the acceptance to gift students with their own Chromebooks. I'll second that. All right, any discussion? All approved? Thank you, Ms. Dye.
Thank you.
All right, actually, next, you're right up again.
Yes.
Definitely looking forward to this. You're going to be providing us an update on the website.
I am, and a quick walkthrough. The new website rollout will align the priority 4 of the strategic plan, specifically to promote our social media campaign. There's a live feed on the school sites as well as the district site to demonstrate our core values and strategic priorities. This way, we can highlight members of the school community and enhance the delivery of our media by consolidating it to a single location. In addition to our website deployment, we will also be offering a mobile app, which will be available at the Android and Apple Store when we launch. Once installed, and if allowed by the user, this app will feature pop-up notifications, including notice of closures as well as content updates. And I will now give you a walkthrough of the site. On the top right, families looking to enroll their children in our district, we have a new student registration link. This will be the same on all 3 of the sites, Hsd Middle, Hsd Central, and the school district site. It is also located on our menu that pops up under the parents. It should be right here for the new student registration. This will give us guides and a walkthrough of how to do this student registration. And just to know, we will be changing the way that we do the registration. Right now, we have a portal that you go to that you see here. And then once you fill that out, it goes into a queue and then will be ported over to PowerSchool. We're actually going to be implementing everything into our student information system for July 1. So it's going to look a little bit different, but I will have updated guides on the website for that. Next, we will have our gallery, which will highlight school and district happenings. These will be updated through the year with different departments. Underneath that, we have quick links for easy access to commonly used pathways, like the school board live link to check in on the school board, parent portal visibility for all, our district RFP, strategic plan, and employment opportunities. Underneath this, we have an events calendar. At the district level, it will combine both the Hsd Middle School and Hsd Central School events, and you can see them when you click on one. If it is something that you are interested in, you can add it to your calendar, and that works in a Google format, Outlook, or an iCal import. From here, we have the live feed, which will consolidate all of our social media, which will be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all in one location. This will also reflect on the application, the app that you would download on your phone. On the district site, we're going to have a departments menu where you can click on some of our school departments. We'll have updated information about each department as far as information relative to that page. Which can also be located from the menu, which will have drop-down portions. This is our technology page with our technology team on the left and some technology items in play in the classrooms and our IA lab over here at middle school. We'll also have information on our one-to-one program, and at the bottom we also have some frequently asked questions that we get, like what happens if my charger is lost or stolen, things like that. And also our policies. Themes are very similar from site to site, reflective of the school colors that you're used to. And here we have the quick links as well. We included Clever in here for our CMS for quick access for our families to access Clever if they need to. We'll also have the live feed reflective of the schools and the events calendar that would have only the school events. If you're on the Central School page, it would only have Central School events here. And in the same fashion, you can add the events that you see to your personal calendar so you can get notifications to go to those events. We have our school board page here. And one thing I would like to mention is there is an email feature update. We did have a recent cybersecurity audit, and one of the action items that was involved was to remove email addresses in plain text off of our front-facing websites to reduce the potential phishing and spam intake. So now when we go to send a message, we'll click on a button for send message, and it will open up a form where you type in your name, your email. You will write the message body here. You will click I'm not a robot to prove that you're not artificial intelligence, and then you will send that message through. And we are going to be pushing this website live on Thursday. And just to note that it does take anywhere from an hour to 24 hours for the DNS records to propagate live, but we're hoping that it will be live for everyone by Friday. Do you have any questions?
Board members, questions?
It's very intuitive and easy to navigate, so that's great.
Thank you.
That's got a very clean navigation from what we saw, so thank you.
You showed the school board where sending a message doesn't show our email addresses. Is that the same for all of the administrators, all of the teachers, and everywhere else throughout the websites?
Same exact thing. I can show you right here. If you want to send, you can. We also have them sorted by department. So if you click on, you know what, this one hasn't been changed, and that's something that I'm going to have to do. If I go to middle school, oops, I'm on the wrong section. I apologize. All right, I apologize. I'm in the wrong section here. Okay, so this is a test environment. This is not live, and I was kind of stuck in the test environment. But if I click on, say, 6th grade, when it is live, we send a message, it will have that form for all staff members. I apologize for the technical difficulties.
Nope. Understood.
Thank you.
Appreciate the walkthrough. Carl, Jason, you good? All right. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add,
I want to say thank you to not only Joe, but the whole tech team and the committee that spent pretty much the entire year developing this. It really is not just a website that we're updating, but when you look at the whole suite of tools as part of this Thrill Share program, the live feed, the updating to social media, the expansion of Instagram. The department has just done some real high-quality work. And I also want to note, our original target date was June 1, and obviously there's been a little bit of delay because we really want to do this right. And the delay was not a delay on the development of this new site. It was really about updating content that over many years has become outdated. So there's still some work that needs to be done. Our team, our leadership team has had conversations about whose responsibility is it to update what sections of the website. Because what we don't want to do is have this wonderful new communication tool, and then 3 months from now, the content is outdated. So there's still a lot of work to do, but I do appreciate all the work that the tech department has completed. So.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ms. Thompson. All right. Next, we're going to have the building principals come up and present the 2022-2023 end-of-year school goals presentation and strategic plan. Thank you, Shannon.
Okay. All right. Yeah, right. All right, we're just waiting for this to load. All right, good evening. I am honored to be here this evening to present the Hempstead School District's strategic plan deliverables for the 2022-2023 school year. So as the board is aware, many of the community members are aware, this is year one of a 3-year strategic plan that we developed. Part of the development of that plan was getting together a representative group of stakeholders to engage in really meaningful work to develop values and strategic priorities for the school district over the next 3 years. Slide. So a key piece of our strategic plan are our core values, and we really arrived at these core values through looking at our existing core values, looking at our practices, providing feedback surveys to all stakeholders. And so as a school district, our core values, we communicate with positive intent, we honor children, we believe in the relationship and team building, our actions are driven by acts of integrity, and we strive to create a culture of collaboration. So all decision-making, everything we do, the programs we develop are all designed around our core values. You can advance the slide. So when we began the planning for the strategic plan, we identified really 5 priority areas. And those 5 priority areas include empowering students to become expert learners who have the confidence to advance for themselves, to advocate for themselves, and take responsibility for their learning. The second priority is to examine current programs and practices for relevance and effectiveness. Number 3 is to foster a positive school culture that honors the emotional well-being of students and our staff. Number 4, to improve communication for staff and community stakeholders, and to design learning environments to match our educational philosophy. So again, these 5 priorities are our focus over the next 3 years. So what we did to keep this document a living document, a relevant document, something we continuously turn to, is we developed deliverables, an action plan that we will have. So there'll be 3 action plans. At the conclusion of it, we'll be able to say that we've met the 5 priorities of the strategic plan. What is really exciting about this work is, there are members of our leadership team that will come up here and speak to each one of these priorities. They're going to speak to the work that was done in their buildings this year. But the reality is, there were so many hands and so many fingerprints on this work this year. This is the work of our teachers and our support staff. So what you're seeing really here is this collective effort to advance our organization. And again, you've heard me say it before, you'll hear me say it again. We are a community that is committed to continuous improvement. We're always looking at how can we do it better? How can we be better? It's not always perfect, but we are a community that's committed to continuous improvement. And with that said, I'm going to hand it over to our building principals, who are going to talk about each of the priority areas and what the work looked like in their building this year.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. In regard to Priority 1 at HCS, our teachers participated in what's called instructional rounds. And instructional rounds are an opportunity for teachers to observe each other in practice while they look for evidence of various teaching practices to create a goal, which then supports our students in becoming expert learners. And every one of our professional staff members is engaged in that process this year. Michelle Carberry and Heather Burkett were trained as Universal Design for Learning coaches and facilitated these instructional rounds so staff could watch each other teach. This year, observations were done with grade level colleagues observing each other, and then they worked together to develop that grade level goal, which they then reviewed at subsequent professional learning opportunities. In addition, at 6 of our staff meetings this year, our Universal Design, or our UDL team members, provided professional learning opportunities to further support the full staff in an understanding of UDL practices. We've even included some of our support staff in that toward the end of the school year. And finally, in order to continue and keep the learning moving, our UDL team created a Google Shared Drive that was created by them, and they started to populate it with resources, and now they've shared it with our full staff, who have access to contribute and learn from that, and it's going to continue to become a depository for all of these great ideas to support our learners.
So at the middle school, our Universal Design for Learning team has provided professional learning throughout the year, both at our staff meetings on a fairly regular basis and during some of our professional learning days release time. This year, the staff focused on student reflection and worked in a variety of ways depending on the grade level and subject area to develop tools that encourage that reflection on their learning. A great example is in Family and Consumer Science, Mrs. Rubin has the students fill out a reflection form after they've completed a lab, such as smoothie making, and they have a chance to reflect on, did it come out, did it taste the way they thought it would, was it the consistency they hoped it would be, and if not, why, and kind of reflecting that way. And they really had a lot of fun doing it, and really, she saw some great growth with the students through those reflections. Along with the Universal Design for Learning professional development, I just wanted to mention we did have a consultant come in our last I think it was our full PD day, professional learning day, and his name is John Vanderels, and he's done some work with us, some introductory work on professional learning communities and how we can use those PLCs to enhance our student learning and assessment practices, and our hope is that he'll be able to continue to do that work with us next year. next year in conjunction with the UDL, so I'm excited for that. We also developed and implemented a student principal leadership team, which consisted of students from each grade level. We had a great representation across the school, and what we really worked hard was to meet regularly and just instill student voice, and our students really were excited about it. They embraced it. They went back and got feedback from their peers and were able to use that voice, and we had the opportunity for our 8th graders to show, kind of model that leadership that they already had instilled in them, especially with our 5th graders, and that was a really positive thing that I plan to continue next year as well. And then through our 8th grade leadership RTI group with Mrs. Wolf and our ventures classes, both here and at Central School with Mrs. Mayu and Mrs. Weiscarver, they planned and implemented the family STEAM night, I know it's happened in the past, but it was a real enhanced family STEAM night this year that was really successful, and again, a great opportunity where students were able to show some leadership, some creativity, and families got to come in and experience that as well.
So with priority 2, we focused on examining our current programs and practices, specifically in the area of ELA, or English Language Arts. This year, our reading specialist, Kristen Karamatopoulos, collaborated with Nicole Tomaselli and the English Language Arts team to inventory program materials and determine their use to meet student needs in English Language Arts. They worked to identify gaps in our programming, which then helped to inform our pilot, which was also part of this priority. This year we had a group of teachers who piloted 2 different ELA curriculums. They piloted something called Wonders and the newer version of our existing curriculum called Journeys. At this time, they've made a recommendation that we move forward with the Comprehensive Wonders program for the 23-24 school year and beyond. In addition, we created a resource list of current evidence-based practices and programs available in the building specific to reading interventions. The resource list was created as well as a list of current assessments which are used to inform reading instruction and intervention. Additionally, we have several staff members participating in the research-based Letters of Professional Learning, which is based in the science of reading and in partnership with the New Hampshire Department of Education. Finally, we looked at ways to align resources to support the implementation of MTSS, which is the Multi-Tiered Systems of Support, which is a systematic way to identify student needs and to support them at various levels. This year, we developed and purchased additional resources to support MTSS-A, such as the University of Florida Literacy Instruction Program for our interventions and various math manipulatives for our Title I program. Excuse me. We also started training cohorts of teachers in restorative practices as part of our multi-tiered systems of support behaviors side of our house.
So in collaboration with HCS, we did inventory curriculum programs across all grade levels in English Language Arts, created a resource list of the current evidence-based practices and the programs that are available in the building for ELA interventions. We also utilized monthly PLC meetings, professional learning community meetings. Those are subject area meetings that met on a regular basis and worked to refine their instructional techniques and also incorporated the best practices around differentiation. It's really powerful. You know, our grade level teams meet on a daily basis, but when those subject areas need to have those vertical conversations and have those really rich conversations about what they're doing in their instructional practices, we've seen some great results from that. And then mid-year, we created and distributed a staff feedback form, giving administration some feedback mid-year, kind of a chance for us to take a look at how things were going, use that feedback and plan for the remainder of the year. I find that feedback is super valuable, and we really look forward to getting that feedback, and we'll be, again, getting out another survey for the end of the year for teachers to get that feedback so we can plan over the summer for next year.
All right, in the area of priority 3, We worked hard to develop and foster that positive school culture, to honor the emotional live district staff members to become NAMI Connect trainers, who then went in and taught the rest of our staff about suicide prevention. At HCS, that was our school counselor, Michelle Crissa, school psychologist, Melissa Clay, and school social worker, Julie Barbick, who engaged in that training. We also fostered many opportunities for cross-classroom interaction between students. For example, the Science Honors Program from Pinkerton came down to meet with our fourth graders to teach them about cells. Grades 1 and 5 were fortunate enough to both attend Odeon Point on the same day last week. Grade 2 had an opportunity to connect with some of our 8th graders who came down to teach them about the Gizmo program about mental health. And then our kindergarten students participated in Reading Buddies this year as well. Another important feature of this priority is the idea around promoting staff wellness. Taking care of our staff really does impact student success. Teachers who are mentally and physically healthy, supported, and motivated are better equipped to create engaging, inclusive learning environments. Some ways that we supported our staff in that endeavor was Kayla Dustin took on the role of our Wellness Committee Chair this year and sponsored events such as the Water Drinking Challenge right after the New Year. So a thank you to her. There were also some opportunities for holiday breakfasts for our staff to come together, various Halloween celebrations, as well as luncheon opportunities. Finally, as this priority states, we wanted to develop opportunities for student leadership, including restarting our student council, so I thank you to Ms. Rodriguez for bringing back our student council, and working with them to really take on some leadership opportunities. This year, our student council sponsored 2 food drives, the first one ever to benefit the middle school Saltbox Pantry, as well as a school-wide kindness week. Other students had leadership opportunities, such as the unveiling of the new book vending machine. Some students were running some school-wide meetings and had an opportunity to teach new students about our We Deliver intermail program.
All right, so at the middle school, we had many activities this year to address school culture and also well-being of staff and students. Starting with our advisory, we worked hard. We had an advisory committee who worked to provide activities that were school-wide, so that different advisories weren't kind of doing their own thing, that we had some school-wide messages and some school-wide language, and everybody doing the same thing. We also implemented the One Trusted Adult program with some mixed reviews. There's some great pieces of it. The kids didn't always love the writing in the journals, but there were some great activities that went with it. So we had some certainly some takeaways from that, but we did really work on some different SEL activities, which also provide an opportunity. That picture on the bottom with the handprints was one of the activities that some of our 8th grade leaders were able to come into the advisories and help run. So it's another great opportunity for older kids to work with younger kids, our leaders to step up and help out and create some great programming. Thank you to Mrs. Karpinski. We brought Ed Garrity in, who is well-known for his speaking and his message, especially with middle schools. He has a great message of fostering positive school culture, and really was well-received. The kids were jazzed up. His message is incredible. And Mrs. Karpinski and her Sunshine Squad are continuing that message with some of the ideas that he brought us, including kids just had, in their advisories, had an opportunity to vote on hallway names. So our hallways will have like street signs, and they're going to have names, and it could be like Respect Way or Kindness Lane. I don't know what has come out of it yet, but we'll be hoping to have those up in the building for next year, as well as some other messages of just positivity, kindness, working together. So we're excited about that. Dr. Cheney mentioned the NAMI Connect trainers. Our other 2 trainers that were in our building were Mr. Mayu and Mrs. Karpinski. So we had similar training here. We also have begun training all of our staff on implementing the restorative practices, and really what that restorative practice work is training staff to have meaningful conversations to problem solve different situations with the kids using a circle approach. We have begun to use that within the building already. You know, some disciplinary issues or just little issues that pop up, it's a chance to stop and circle up, and the staff are trained in helping those kids talk about it, and students, even ones that I wouldn't have thought would think that was a great thing, have come out of there going, wow, I really liked that. So it's pretty exciting, very early stages, but we're going to keep going with it and use it throughout our school and throughout our advisories. And then our wellness committee has been fantastic this year in planning regular activities, a variety of things, including a very large activity, which was an amazing race where teams got together and competed against each other over a period of weeks, and the staff got really, really excited about that. It was a lot of fun. And other things like just, you know, on a professional development day, having a big potato bar for lunch and everybody chips in, or an ice cream sundae bar. So those activities really have been a positive thing in our school as well.
Priority 4 focuses on improving communication for staff and community stakeholders. Our first action item was to develop a social media strategy to improve communication and showcase our school through in school year, posting on a regular basis the events, activities, and learning opportunities occurring at the Hempstead Central School. In addition to our social media strategy, we've also developed a partnership with the Eagle Tribune, and we've featured things such as Heather Burkett, one of our Teacher of the Year candidates, the book vending machine, the Polar Express event we did this winter, as well as many features about the building project. We had hoped to further develop school and community relationships through having community forums, which we had 4 of, to raise awareness for the HCS building addition, as well as parent involvement events during the 22-23 school year. We hosted some parent events such as the One School, One Book evening last week. Mrs. Milbury mentioned Family STEAM Night earlier this winter. And additionally, we brought back some favorites such as Bingo for Books and the Jingle Bell Shop in partnership with the PTSA. And finally, we were so pleased to have our kindergarten parents back in the school this March, where they could see each other, meet each other, and go down to the classrooms.
All right, so my slide talks a little bit about the website and the social media campaign, and Joey did such a great job already telling you all about that, so I'll skip over that one, but we're excited to have that going. But also at the middle school, we created opportunities for in-person conversations, coffee with the principal, where parents could come in and give feedback, or community members, and just give input that is really valuable to us. Hoping to continue to do that, and hoping to, spread the word that maybe we can find ways to get more community members in to share their feedback and have conversations, but we were happy to be able to provide that.
And then priority 5, looking at designing learning environments to match our educational philosophies. The first action item for us was to participate in a facilities study. What we did first was we had Primex, they're our risk management company or our insurance company, conducted a playground study this fall. Findings were mostly positive with just a few minimal adjustments, such as moving a sandbox and repainting curbs, and those were all completed by the end of 2022. We also had NHSAA in, and they provided a facility study to provide enrollment projections. They're estimating a steady increase of our student population over the next few years. And Homeland Security actually returned to do a tabletop security exercise with my safety team, but they followed up on their safety study from the previous year, checking in on some of the things that they had brought to our attention. And they were impressed with the improvements that we were able to make in that year. Another priority was to develop a scheduling task force. We did. The task force met 15 or more times. We developed 2 drafts of a schedule to present to the superintendent. Since the last time I presented, there's been some additional feedback regarding the schedule. I had the opportunity to meet with teachers and learn more about their thoughts and feedback. And we've actually come up with an even better improvement to continue to meet the needs of all of our learners. This work will continue for the 23-24 school year as we see the schedule in action and get feedback and make adjustments as needed. Finally, we were working to implement the Need to Get Outside grant to include experiential learning opportunities for students. I'm really pleased to report that we had 3 new events occur because of this grant. Grade 3 had the opportunity to go to Pinkerton for a maple sugaring field trip as they were learning about the weather and climate. Grade 2 had an opportunity also to go to Pinkerton for a magic school bus show about the weather, and the Need to Get Outside grant helped support that. And finally, the Need to Get Outside grant brought the wildlife to us last week, bringing wildlife encounters in as one of our culminating activities for our One School, One Book program. And then, a fan favorite that we were happy to bring back again was that Sarah Wise Carter partnered with UNH and Globe to bring back the soil tent and even did even more hands-on learning for our students this year.
All right, so we also participated in the facilities study and used those findings to keep in mind when we're making some decisions about the building. And our scheduling task force, I know I've talked about this previously, but we worked hard to try to come up with a different or an improved schedule. We know that especially in middle schools, schedules are always there's always a need for improvement. So we didn't make any big changes for next year. We needed a little bit more time, but we did make a couple of small changes that focused on more minutes of instruction. So we're feeling good with where we're at, but we know that we've got work to do. We know that beyond schedules, high-quality instruction often happens outside of the classroom. So we worked to provide experiences for kids this year, some of it bringing back experiences that hadn't happened for a while, and some of it just continuing experiences that did happen last year. We work hard. One of the instructional practices that I talk a lot about with teachers is kids being able to make real-world connections. And the best way to make those real-world connections is to get out in the real world and experience it. So our 8th graders got to go to Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. and had a fantastic trip that we plan to continue for next year. Already have plans for when that will happen next year. 7th grade got to go to Take Flight, which is a ropes course and team building facility. And they had a fantastic time, and we are in the process of plans for a 7th grade nature's classroom trip next year, so that they'll have that to look forward to in the fall. 6th grade just went today to the Freedom Trail in Boston and got to experience all of that rich history that they learn about in social studies in 6th grade. And 5th grade, as Dr. Cheney mentioned, got to visit the Sequel Science Center and went on the same day as our younger 1st graders, and they got to experience all the things they've been learning in science with the ocean and the seashore, and had a great day there. So we're really excited about being able to offer those opportunities and really look forward to planning more. And then also just being able to promote a variety of after-school activities such as STEM Club and robotics. In addition, we talk a lot about our athletics and chorus and band and things like that, but we really did provide a rich variety of activities for all different kinds of learners and different interests for students that I'm really proud of. So, thank you.
So I really just can't begin to tell you how proud I am of not only our leadership, but all of our school staff. I want you to just consider for a minute, this isn't everything we did. We have not even talked about all of the wonderful things that went on in individual classrooms. What you see here relates to the 5 priorities of our strategic plan. I mean, we could go on. These last 2 weeks, just all of the end of the year events, the cybersecurity audit that Joe talked about. It just, when you look at it through the lens of this plan, the volume of work, the activity, all the things that went into this school year, this is 3 years worth of work. So I'm very proud of this team. And again, we are not just going to sit around and high-five each other about all the great things we've done this year. We have already engaged in several conversations about what is next. And so I'm just going to give you a little preview. I'm going to caution us, though, because a critical piece of what we plan for next year when it comes to the next round of deliverables really comes from feedback that we are going to receive from our stakeholders, from our staff, from our parents. We're going to administer surveys, we're going to review that data, and we're going to use that data in conjunction with some of the work we know needs to happen to come back here in August with a new set of deliverables for the 23-24 school year. But let us give you just a little taste of some of the things that we're thinking about. So one thing is community engagement. As a district, we pride ourselves on the relationship that we have with community stakeholders, with our parents, our families, members of the community, civic organizations. There's still a lot of work to be done. We've gotten feedback. Our parents want to be more involved in the schools. They want to volunteer more. We need to make that happen. We vetted, we have a designated volunteer list that is approaching 200 parents and community members, and that really is driven by the work that Melissa Post has done this year. We need to put those people to work. So what we need to do is we need to get back to that pre-pandemic volunteer level and beyond. And so one of the activities our team is already engaged in is how can we get more volunteers into the school next year, really come experience the magic that's occurring in the classrooms every single day. And with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Jess, who's going to talk about some of the work we're planning to do around multi-tiered systems of support for behavior.
Thanks, Bob. Good evening, everyone. I'm really excited for us to continue this work. In fact, on my way in here this evening, I was stopped by a staff member who said, "Hey, can I share something with you real quick?" And they said, "I wanted to let you know I've been implementing restorative practices in community circles in my work outside of school as a coach." And it made me feel really proud of this program that we're bringing in, because it isn't just impacting the school community, but it's also impacting our greater community. And so we're going to continue our work with restorative practices. Right now we have over 60 professional staff trained. We're going to continue to work to train all of our professional staff. We have some work hopefully going into the summer and into next fall, and so we'll continue these restorative practices and building these practices and circles into what we're developing a menu of interventions. And so through our building and district MTSSB teams, we're working to develop and refine our processes that will include a menu of interventions to target specific student needs. And so when a child or a student is having challenges around behavior, socially, emotionally, we have options for them. And so it isn't a one-size-fits-all approach, but we look at where their needs are, and then from there we're able to build supports in place for them. And so I'm very excited that we're going to continue this work into next year. Nicole?
Hi everyone, good evening. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our action items for next year around our educator evaluation model. This was actually one of our targets for this year, and we did start the abundance of work actually to revise our evaluation model for our professional staff. As we began to look at our professional development master plan and the educator evaluation model within it, we realized that we really want to design a model that is more efficient, allows for more walkthroughs, and is more authentic in the evaluative process.
So we're going to continue to kind of work on what we hold as non-negotiables with the staff and what we want to see in every single classroom next year. Along those lines, we're also going to ensure that this new model is aligned with the professional standards held by the New Hampshire Department of Ed. So the goal is that our teachers will be evaluated in alignment with those standards. We will be piloting, prior to implementation of this new model. Another action item you'll see next year involves multi-tier systems of support for the academic side of our work. So that will include differentiated instruction and the continuance of UDL tenets and the training around UDL tenets in Tier 1, as well as developing a menu of interventions. These are all the great tools and strategies we can use to meet kids where they're at in our Tier 2 programs. Another area we'd like to focus on next year is around grading and assessment practices. So we would like to have a little bit more consistency with our grading and ensure that our teachers are armed with evidence-based practices. We're all very aware of artificial intelligence and some of the technology that's coming down the pipe, and we want to make sure that our assessments allow for children to show what they know in authentic ways and model appropriate use of those tools. So we will be learning about AI, we'll be talking about different types of assessments. Certainly there's a number of ways to assess children and give them room to show you what they know. We're also going to be continuing our work for curriculum alignment. We did quite a bit of work this year in ELA. We're looking forward to the new rollout of our English Language Arts curriculum next year, and science is on deck next. So curriculum alignment will continue vertically, and we'll also be aligning our grading practices to our curriculum so that we offer students a variety of ways to learn in hands-on ways and kind of model everything that they can master and they're confident of. Oh, the skyline. I'm sorry. So you'll notice the background here is a skyline that is very well likely going to be a theme you'll see next year. The skyline is kind of an image that we've started to adopt. We have a number of initiatives in our school that are like rock stars. They're just incredible pillars in our community. I'll cite the UDL committee's work, for example. It's an absolute skyscraper for us. It's really well known around our state that Hempstead is a model UDL school. It's well known by CAST, the research-based organization that sponsors UDL work. But our intention is to grow a skyline of those skyscrapers. So we're not trying to just elevate one idea. We have a variety of students here. We certainly have growth and improvements to be made to reach all of the children. So you'll notice that this image has layers to it, a lot of variability in the shapes and sizes, and that's all just kind of symbolic of what we think public schools should be.
I'm curious how the principal leadership team was selected as far as the student representation.
We asked each grade level for 3 representatives, so the teachers chose students that they felt were leaders and that set good examples. But by the time we got that underway, they had been with them for about a quarter of the year, so they knew the students pretty well, and they made some great selections. A lot of grades had some hard choices, and and then we just asked the kids if they would be willing, and they were.
Excellent. Thanks.
I had a bunch of different questions, and you kept answering them as they went along the way, which was really awesome. Restorative practices sounds good. And the abstract, can you kind of give an example of what that looks like a specific example?
So restorative practices is just that. It's restorative in nature. And so oftentimes what happens when there may be a problem is that there is oftentimes a miscommunication, right? And so restorative practices is an opportunity for us to be able to repair some of that through almost like a collaborative problem-solving approach. And so it isn't accusatory in nature. You start with questions like, what happened? And how did that make you feel? And things like that. So it allows people to be heard from both sides and gain both perspectives, and then utilize that to be able to engage in a meaningful conversation to find a solution. And oftentimes, you know, in the opportunities we've had to practice that, kids are recognizing almost their piece of the pie, right? So when a situation happens, everybody kind of owns a slice of the pie. Some slices are larger than others, but being able to hear owning up your side of it. And I'll give like an example where maybe a name is called to a student in the hallway. Upon further I don't want to say investigation, but upon using that questioning technique about what happened, it was very clear that that child was upset because someone else had been calling that child a name. And so really trying to get to that, and then with kids circling up and having a conversation around, hey, you said that hurt me when you said that, and then they can say what their response is, then we are organically helping to repair relationships and opening up that communication. Because that's hard to do. It's hard to tell somebody how they made you feel, and it's also hard to accept that feedback when you hurt somebody. And so it's just normalizing those types of conversations to create solutions. And the sooner we can start those repairs, I think what you'll start to see is a decrease in some of those larger behaviors, because we're kind of extinguishing those smaller situations that oftentimes can escalate. That's just one example. But you can also do it when you're talking about setting norms for a community. You circle up and you talk about what's the importance, what is our goal here, and what are we going to all agree to as a community to ensure or support our work moving forward. So it's not just about kind of the problem-solving piece, it's also about building community itself.
It's really well explained. So basically, it's not like, oh, you said that word detention, never process it again. It's why did you say that, so on and so forth.
Yeah, because
To fix it.
oftentimes there's a story behind it, right?
Yeah.
That more often than not, we know people aren't trying to be hurtful. Like there's a reason kind of behind that piece.
Middle schoolers often struggle with the ability to communicate in good ways.
Yeah.
That was awesome. And I just had the second question.
Yeah, and also, you know, Erin talked about wanting to build that into the advisory piece, but utilizing that in terms of when we're establishing those norms or expectations as a community. When you do that as a whole, then you're creating a proactive approach to having a more supportive community, so you're less likely to see those behaviors because you see the impact it has on the greater community. And essentially, we're developing good human beings, so when they go out into the world, they also understand how their behavior may impact the greater community.
It's awesome. And then the second question I had was on naming hallways. I know the Minnesota Department of Transportation outsourced it, and they came up with awesome names like Plowy McPlowface and Betty Whiteout. So I don't know from the strategic plan whether we could put out to the community possible different names that they could have for a hallway and then maybe choose one. I thought that would be kind of cool.
I know the naming of things, whether it's a gymnasium, a library, a hallway, I might defer to the board if, because that could turn into a really heated conversation, so. And any other questions?
One question for Nicole that you were talking about towards the end about curriculum. You were saying they're going to be looking at science curriculum. Can you give a little bit more preview of what that looks like?
So our science, we're currently using a textbook and an agreement with a company. We get work text sent to us. Many of our teachers have felt that that's kind of stale, and we certainly don't want our children reading about other kids that get to do science. We want to be the ones doing the science. So you've seen this year a variety of hands-on after-school programs. Our tech ed room is on fire with all kinds of projects, and the kids really, not literally on fire, temper myself. You know, they're doing a 3D printing academy this summer. there's so much motivation to do things in a hands-on capacity, and that extends to our science department through our engineering design process standards and through the NGSS standards. So we're probably going to do something homegrown. Our science teachers are very passionate about phenomena-based instruction and this idea of inquiry instruction, inquiry learning. We've had a number of evening events in this middle school with astronomy night. So bringing subject matter experts in, bringing children out to see different science phenomena play out in the local world around them, that's really what the curriculum will probably evolve into, but if that answers your question. We're trying to get away from a canned product, if that makes sense. We also have a lot, I'll just add to that, we do a lot with mystery science and discovery education. Mystery science, your children at home probably are familiar with Doug, and mystery science makes really great little videos and hands-on activities that are very easy for teachers to utilize in class, so.
It's not like Mr. Science Theater 3000 and like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you remember what that is, Andy, but no.
I got it.
All right, thank you. Great, this is awesome. Great presentation, great overview. And we know there's a lot more that's been done by, teachers, staff, students, so thank you.
Very impressed.
All right. Next up is the 2023-2024 class size policy waiver request by Dr. Cheney for grade 4.
Yes, hi. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about where we currently are with our class sizes. Our grade 4-3 is currently at 89 students. Right now, we have budgeted for 4 teachers at grade 4 next year, which puts us at this moment at 3 classes of 22 and 1 class of 23. 23 is the current board policy for 4th grade. If the students who have indicated interest in our programming continue to follow through with their enrollment, we're likely to be right at policy going into the summer. So I wanted to bring this to the board's attention and also ask you to consider a policy waiver so that way we have some wiggle room over the summer as new students may enroll. What questions do you have?
So you have the ability to absorb 3 more students,
Yes.
and you foresee that you are going to have at least 3 more coming in?
I do right now. We're hearing from many families, actually across all of our grade levels, returning from a variety of alternative education systems, so charter schools and things like that. We have about 9 coming back into 1st grade too, so we're seeing a resurgence and a return to our building.
Okay. Just looking at. Board members, any questions on this before?
So by waiving this, the ratio could potentially be what, the student to teacher ratio?
So I don't want us to really consider much above 1 to 25. So that would put 2 more students per class. And I believe, I should have written it down, but I believe the state policy is actually 30 per class at this grade level. Okay, you have it, good job.
Okay.
So it still puts us underneath that to achieve the goals that we have here in Hempstead.
I guess at what point, Dr. Cheney or Mr. Thompson, would you look at that we would have to, that you would be comfortable that we would look at a 5th classroom needed? Like how many students? Where's that tipping point for you?
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer. Well, the answer is we've already looked at it. Even where we're at now, I do think if in excess of 25, we certainly have to give that a consideration. The issue is, when we look at our zero-based budgeting model does not, one of the downsides of that is we don't budget for extra positions. We budget for the positions we know and anticipate. And we did not anticipate, based upon the enrollment during budget season, that we would be here. So there's that obstacle, which we could certainly overcome. The other obstacle that the community is aware of is space. Dr. Cheney and I have had several conversations with Mr. Dowd. We're not sure where we would put the classroom. all of the options for placing this class are not good. And quite frankly, I'm not sure that I even want to talk about them tonight. But I think if we're going to be in excess of 25 students, then we do need to consider that, and that we may come back to look at adding another classroom.
So if I hear you correctly, then just that we're going to anticipate 3 more children, so we're going to be at 23.
Correct,
So that
going
gives
into the
us
summer.
8 more students to absorb. That gets us to 25. Where do you think we are now close to that? Do you think we have more than 3 more students? Do you think we're at 3 students coming into the year?
Great question. I've heard from 4 families with potential 4th graders for next year. So we'd be at 23 across the board in one class at 24.
So we could absorb another
7.
7
Yep.
before we get to that point.
Right.
Okay.
And that's a lot.
That is a lot.
That's a
yeah.
lot. When you compare it to class sizes historically in Hampstead.
Yeah.
All right.
And by 4th grade, typically we know about the students that are in the community that may be returning.
Yep. Okay.
So here's a question, and
Sure.
this is a middle school question, which I don't think it's going to work in elementary. But
I might have to
do you have
defer.
the ability to do split, like grades, where you have a teacher that does 3rd and 4th grade?
To do like a multi-age situation?
Yeah.
I haven't considered that yet, and to be frank, I focus really heavily on my 4th grade numbers. I don't remember what my rising 3rd grade numbers are at this point to know if that would make sense or if that would help us to not need an additional staff member.
We'd still run into the we don't have space issue
Correct.
anyways, though, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
So, for me, I'd be comfortable with waiving the policy with the, action to come up with what would we do so we can prepare for that if we get another 7 students between the summer and then next year. I think for me, as long as we have that plan provided to the board, I'd say coming into the early part of the summer, nothing we have to vote on, but at least an awareness of what that plan would be. Where would you stick that at 4th grade, and how would you transition the current 4 classrooms to get some of those students moved into a 5th classroom? Because that'd be taking them from a teacher mid-year and putting them with a new teacher, which is disruptive, and I'm sure a lot of parents wouldn't want that.
Yeah, and I think, if you look at our enrollment trends, this is the time of the year where we are made aware of students who are returning, students who move to the community. It does happen over the summer as well, but there's not a ton of new students that move in during the school year. So I would be comfortable to, have that plan ready to go in August, and if we need to execute on it prior to the start of the
Agreed.
school year.
Right.
And this is going to be a problem that we're going to continue to deal with until such time that we have additional classroom space at the central school. So it's something that we just need to be, prepared to deal with. We have new families moving in. As Dr. Cheney has indicated, we have a really great problem. People are bringing their children back to the Hampstead schools. That's a wonderful problem to have, but it's still at times a problem.
And how are we going to be supporting the teachers? I'm sure they've raised this awareness of concern of that many students per teacher. How are we going to support them? Because we're going to support them either way, whether it's 23, 24, 25. It's a lot of students per teacher, especially 4th graders. I can barely handle one of mine, but
Yes, we're looking at ways to support them with various resources that we have in the school. So is there a way for our MTSSA, multi-tier systems of support, academic side to support and take on some things as I look through the master schedule? Who are some additional folks that can be an all-hands-on-deck approach during some of those what I need times, so that way the groups aren't always as big? So that's something that we're looking at and working on.
all right. Then I'll make a motion to waive the policy IIB to make room for students in the 4th grade, with the understanding that the action of what would we do if we have to move to 5 classrooms, and how are we going to support the teachers
Yep.
to be provided to the board by, let's say, July 15th.
Okay.
So that's my motion.
I'll second it so we can discuss it.
Yep.
Should the motion include something along the lines of not to exceed 25 people, 25 students per class.
I was going to say, yeah, a motion to increase the cap to 25 with the caveat of preparing for if it goes over.
I'll amend my motion to say not to exceed 25 per classroom.
And I'll still second it.
Any other discussion, thoughts, input? Good. All right, all approved? All right, thank you for this good problem to have and
Sure.
considerations
Still a
and
problem.
thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
So thank you both.
Thank you.
All right, next we're going to turn it over to Mr. Thompson to talk about the HCS main entrance reconfiguration.
Just wanted to remind the public that we were tasked by the school board this past spring after the failure of the Central School addition to look at some temporary solutions to some safety and security concerns that were raised by the Department of Homeland Security and that are just also known deficiencies. So we went into a non-public session after developing a plan. We received feedback from the board in regards to that plan and are prepared tonight to present to the board and to the public the plan that we will be moving forward with to address some safety and security issues at the Central School. So essentially what we'll be looking to do is we'll be adding a temporary position, and I say temporary because at some point in time, the deficiencies will need to be addressed. This is only a temporary solution. We'll be adding a position. That person will be located in the current foyer. We're going to reconfigure that foyer. And what that will do is we will be significantly limiting visitor access to the Central School, specifically leading up to the main office. And it really pains me to say that because about 10 minutes ago, I just told you that one of the things that we wanted to do was improve community engagement. But because of the deficiencies at the Central School, we actually have to put a person in that foyer to limit the access to the building. So it's difficult to say that. This person will be responsible, and Mr. Dow will go into greater detail, for vetting visitors. They will accept students who arrive late, need to be dismissed. They will collect the lunches and the other forgotten items from home. At this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Dowd, who's going to provide a little bit more detail. And I appreciate the work that Mr. Dowd and Mr. Mackey have done to really take this plan and make it something that we'll be able to execute on this summer.
Yeah, obviously this isn't the ideal situation, but I think it will bring a lot more security to the building. Parents used to going in and going up the stairs to drop off their bags and lunches, and students who might be arriving late will now be able to drop them off right in a secure area akin to what we have here at the middle school. So we have the elevator lobby, which is where you buzz in to get into the building now. That setup will remain the same from the outside. Once you come in, you'll be in a secure area. If you go back one slide, Joe, the wall that you're looking at right now is the view that you will take if you were standing in the stairwell lobby. It's not very big, and Joe, if you can go on to the next page, you'll see that you'll enter the lobby the same way that you do now. On the right-hand side, you see a proposed new main entrance office. It's not very big. It will be secure. We'll also provide security for the elevator as well, which we have, which is secure now, but it'll be more secure behind a locked door with someone being able to vet the people coming in and out. The view that you're looking at right now, the bottom shows the parking lot side, so where you see the doors swinging out, and that's where the parking lot is on the east end of the school. Visitors will go in and be able to get into that and stay in the proposed lobby area unless there is a cause to go into the building. You'll see a secure window, again akin to what we have here at the middle school, and our proposed new staff would be in that office area to vet visitors and as Mr. Thompson described, take on a bunch of the tasks that we would normally have parents having to go into the school for. So I don't know if the board has any questions on the plan. I think you're probably familiar with it to some degree, but this is a little bit more finalized. I think the expectation would be that parents going to HCS would be limited to that secure lobby area and would not otherwise be in the building during the school day, except for cause such as an appointment, meeting, scheduled meeting, that sort of thing.
I know I don't have any questions. I think this is what we've vetted over the few non-publics and, sidebar discussions of what we need to do for a more secure entryway. So, board members, though, anything?
My main concern is keeping whoever's in that position warm and comfortable to ultimately retain them. So
That's a great
will that main entrance office space, have we discussed, insulation and heating and
Cooling.
Right?
So we've got plans for all of that. Mr. Mackey has been working hard to try and get the most effective and efficient solutions. That area in the morning, we typically wouldn't be there quite that early. Gets the sun directly in, and it gets very, very hot. That door opens dozens of times in the morning, and when it's like 0 degrees out, that's very difficult to recover. So that office will have heat to be able to offset those factors.
Excellent.
We're also concerned about noise. How much noise does the heating element make? So we're working on trying to insulate that aspect of it so that the person who's working there can hear what's going on. People are calling or speaking to them through the window. So the window that you see as well will be similar to what we have here, secure tray. And if a parent has a school bag to drop off, there'll be a table closer to where the elevator is now and leave their bag, and one of our staff can come down and retrieve it when it's secure. So we do have some staffing implications, and normally if we have, and I do have a cost summary estimate for the board. Normally when we have a position, I would consider this to be a new position, we would be coming to the board for approval. I don't see this as a permanent position. I see this as a position that we would need for as long as we have the need to have this secure lobby area. What I'm proposing now is to basically allow this position, but put a freeze on at least one, if not two, para positions, which we have a hard time filling all of our para positions anyway to make sure that the funding is covered. This is a position that, just by its very nature, you have to be there a little bit before the day starts and a little bit after the day ends. So it's going to be a position that's going to be a benefited type position, and it will almost double the cost of the position. But to that extent, I estimate that the total cost, I estimate that the position will be a Hsd position under secretary clerk. Under their collective bargaining agreement, the hours would be 8:30 to 3:45, about 33 3/4 hours per week, 192 days a year, which is the typical.
How many days per year?
192. And the way that works is 180 school days. Under our Hsd Sb, this classification of staff would receive paid holidays as well as an additional paid training day. We may have some additional training opportunities if the person's new to the district, and that may run into a couple extra days, but we would just pay that as we go. Our typical paraeducator positions, which are school year, 192 days per year.
My question about that, Jeff, is you had said that you would see this position as only needed as long as we need this space, right?
Correct.
But we couldn't, would we be looking to this position as something that we renominate every year?
Well, I don't believe you renominate those positions. I don't believe that support staff positions are ones that
That's what I'm trying to understand, is how can we say it would only be until this is, we no longer need this, but we're calling it essentially a full-time position?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we could just, let's say this is only needed for 3 years. I don't think in 3 years, if we make this position like you're stating, we can't just say in 3 years, position's done, can we?
I think you could.
Huh?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. And typically in situations that we've had where we've had to cut or reduce a position, we've been able to, through attrition, find another place for the employee within the district.
Okay.
That makes sense. So it's not, I say it's temporary, And if we,
Well, that's where I was going with this. This is a temporary position. It's not something that's guaranteed year over year.
correct. It's not a permanent, it's permanent, full-time, but it's not, I don't see it as a position that we would have forever.
Yeah, the goal is, at some point, we need a new main office. You know, and we haven't really developed a time frame for that, but the goal would be, if we were to have a new main office configuration addition, the staffing that we currently have is sufficient for our needs. But again, as Mr. Dowd said, you know, repurposing a position is something we would definitely look to do.
And I would be looking to add it to the budget as we approach budget season next year.
Right.
And at least continue to fund it through the budget until some other alternative is
Okay.
obtained.
Yeah, and if you cross-train it with the other front office staff as well, that gives you a backup for the front office staff in case they leave, or if a position opens up in the middle school and they have experience or whatever, so.
The front office staff right now really work and if anyone who's been in that office, you've probably witnessed the significant synergy that they all have with each other, and it's a real nice flow. So to your point, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, in my experience, it's the most institutional knowledge position where when that person leaves, it's incredibly hard to train the next person. So
Yeah.
I think it'd be valuable on two fronts.
Yeah. And just to reiterate, the situation that we're in right now, regardless of whether we have this position or not, we still have to use our front office staff to go downstairs, sometimes to walk students up. And even with this new position, we'll have to have someone from our front office staff go down to retrieve the lunch bags, the school bags, the things like that, a student who may be dropped off late to bring them up. So it does create a little bit of extra work even for the front office area, even with the new staff. But it's a much more secure option.
Okay. Any questions about the position? All right. Then we'll be looking for a motion to accept the request for a new position to support the front of the school.
Second.
As presented?
As presented, yes, sorry. All right. Any other discussions, comments? All approved?
And I expect, Mr. Chairman, that our central school staff and our principal will have communications out after this is built out on our procedures and security protocols for parents as we roll into the new year, next school year.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. What do you anticipate the posting for this position?
We could post anytime with the idea that we wouldn't be able to hire until school starts. But we could certainly post
Okay.
right away with that caveat.
Yeah. So I know I've had a discussion with a number of members in the public that were all like, well, that sounds like a great thing when my child's at school there and I can, be in those
yeah.
hours. So I think there's going to be plenty of interest, to be honest. So it'll be good to get that filled and to have a more secure entryway. So I appreciate a lot of the great work from the Jeffs and Mr. Thompson and Dr. Cheney, et cetera.
Thank you, David. And that's the exact discussion that we had. We were hoping that might be our candidate. I don't think that we've had the discussion together, but we've had that discussion. That would be a great opportunity.
Right. So, thank you. All right. Next up is Mr. Mackey to talk about the summer projects.
Paper with the projects on it. These are what our larger summer facilities projects are going to be. At the Hsd Central School, we have the removal of the 10,000 gallon underground storage tank, as well as the installation of the 5,000 gallon tank. Those will both be done by a vendor. At the Central School, we also have the stage wall that I'm going to be building a permanent wall there. We're going to be removing that folding wall because it's been an issue for that classroom for sound and kind of making it a little more usable space. That we are going to do, I'm going to work in tandem with a vendor where I'm going to have my crew do the removal of the wall to try and save a little bit of money and then bring in the contractor to build the wall. Onto the library, in the room next to the library, new carpet. That's a typical job we usually do every year. I try to get some carpet done, and that carpet in those 2 rooms is probably the oldest carpet in the entire district, so it's long, long overdue to be replaced. Next, we have the front lawn. We have a couple of trees out front that they're just in very poor condition. One of them has been splitting in half. The other one is just showing a lot of rot and dying, and I want to get those removed. And I have a contractor coming in for that, and I'm going to put a couple of smaller trees, maybe some dwarf trees, some flowering trees to give it a little more character. And then the main entrance office lobby that we just talked about, we're actually going to do that pretty much all in-house. I will have to bring in, obviously, an electrician, and maybe flooring. We've done flooring on our own, but this is kind of an interesting, there's a quarry tile there already, so I'm looking into options, seeing what the best avenue is. And then on to middle school. We don't really have too much going on over here. We have the 7th grade science room. That's going to be a polished concrete floor done by a vendor, and the gym is going to get redone. Its usual scrub and recoat to clean that up and get ready for the sporting seasons. So other than that, we have our usual maintenance throughout the year with my regular staff, moving classrooms, cleaning classrooms, any minor repairs, fixes, and it's actually kind of works in favor. I know the oil tank's taking up most of my budget, but it kind of is a blessing because now we can really go at it with my crew and go through, fine-tooth comb to hit up every nook and cranny in the classrooms when we're in there cleaning them out. So that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions.
Yeah, I got a question on.
Yeah.
Do you have a revised 3 to 5 year plan of what you're expecting year over year to forecast?
So it's funny you bring that up. I look at it often because since I've been here, it's been a roller coaster. Every time I make something, we end up having to have to divert and go at it again. I've been on track in a lot of areas. Obviously, the oil tank this year really does a number on me.
Right.
And this fall, you'll come to find out I've got some other, I won't say major projects, but a couple of things that didn't really cross my mind. Vehicle replacement, some equipment replacement that's going to be kind of costly. So I've had to put off, some basic room renovations, and I say that, I've taken on a lot of in-house projects now. Like I do a lot of the ceiling tiles ourselves, we do the painting ourselves, I even do some carpeting ourselves. I won't have my crew do a whole classroom, but we'll do small offices, workspaces and whatnot. So I haven't really diverted too much, but I've been able to dive a little deeper too. Like I mentioned with the underground storage tank, I'm going to have to do middle schools as well because that's aging. So it's probably going to be in the nearer future. And like we discussed with the possible addition renovation over at Central, the septic over there is going to have to be looked at. So I do check at it, and it just every time I seem to add something else comes up, so I have to keep turning. But I have all those on my radar. It's just when and where we can fit them in and what works best for us. So
that's something you can share with the board.
Yeah, I could dress it up a little more and send it out. Yeah,
all right,
definitely.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, because I just remember that for a few years you were rotating rooms here and bathrooms, and I just wanted to, curious where you are with those. Are those all up where you expect them, or are they, another round coming up, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. No, I can honestly probably by fall, I'll have a better idea of what's going to go on next year's, proposed budget, and then I'll have an idea of what avenue I'm on. So,
okay.
Yeah, definitely.
That's good.
And to let you know as well, obviously we have a 10,000 gallon oil tank at the central school. That's a lot of oil. And whatever we have left in it that's usable will be moved from that location to the middle school here.
Gotcha.
Not all of it will be usable, but for a majority of it that's usable, we'll just move it over.
Good.
So we have a vendor who, that's what they do.
That's what they do.
That's what they do.
The company that that won the bid was called Comtank. They're based out of Wakefield, Massachusetts. This is what they do. They do removals, additions, you name it. And I had made that a certain point to put that in the contract to say, hey, whatever I have left over there, because it was a warmer winter and it's kind of hard to gauge how much oil we need, and especially in a tank that large. We ended up having, I think, there's probably about 3,000 gallons over there. Not all of it is usable because you won't go all the way to the bottom because of all the soot, so they might take 2,500 gallons or 2,000 gallons, whatever it be. We're going to bring it over here. So They just charge you per load, and I think it's 1,000 gallons per load, but it's short money to at least keep the oil here instead of getting rid of it because it cost a whole lot more to get rid of it.
Right.
So, yep.
Great. When is that happening?
That is happening in July at some point. I had a Zoom meeting with them the other day to start working on timeline.
Okay.
We've had to go at this a little bit of an interesting avenue because I got word when I was working on this that the oil tank was going to take anywhere from 6+ months to get here. And so I ended up working with Mr. Dowd, and we were able to get an oil tank on order. Luckily, the company we're going through, we only have to pay when it arrives, so that was a huge plus due to us being a municipality. And so I was able to put the order in. I just got confirmation that the oil tank will be finished July 10th, so that's a huge plus because if I acted on it any later, we wouldn't have been getting it till October, November, December, and that wouldn't have worked well for us. But anyways, so the project itself is going to start sometime early July.
Okay.
And we'll be ready to go for the school year.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
All right. Next, we're going to turn over to Mr. Dowd on the fund balance retention.
Thank you. So in front of you, you have a budget to actual projection for our current year and where we'll end up. And I think that this would be helpful to use to review, and we'll discuss that in a moment, to determine around this time of the year, the board does consider fund balance retention, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a moment. But in order to get there, and I don't think we need a decision tonight if the board's not comfortable, quite frankly, it's a little bit easier to handle as we get a little bit closer with certainty. So let's just go over what fund balance retention is, or fund balance retained. The New Hampshire statute allows up to 2.5% of the net assessment of the school district to be essentially withheld from return to the taxpayers out of what we'll call unencumbered fund balance, that all the money that's left that would normally go back to the taxpayers. The purpose of that is to deal with emergencies, unforeseen circumstances, unforeseen budgeted items that come up, and there's a procedure to go and be able to withdraw that money. That fund balance retention needs to be renewed every year. So you set the fund balance retention last year at the maximum 2.5%, which was $636,993. Next year, or in the current year, our fund balance retention amount would be $608,256 if all of it is withheld at the 2.5%. If you don't do anything or take any action, the $636 that you're withholding from last year into this year will then return to the taxpayers. So it's not an accumulating fund, it's a fund that needs something to be renewed every year. This is a little bit different than, let's say, the capital reserve. Capital reserve is a fund that we fund, that builds up, and we have specific purposes for which we can withdraw from that fund. But that does accumulate once the money's in there. It's in there and it continues to grow until it's spent. Fund balance retention, again, needs to be renewed every year. So if you recall, the voters were very gracious to allow the district and vote in favor of, I believe, up to $1 million from our unencumbered fund balance to be placed into the capital reserve fund. And so if you look at where we're at in terms of our projections, as you know, as we've gone over in the past, when we look at our actual, and I'll say surplus, our actual estimated unencumbered fund balance, we have two main sources of any budget variance. It's either an expense variance or a revenue variance or a surplus. So this year, it looks like I would project that our expense surplus will be at least 1.2 million, and our revenue surplus will be about 47,000. With the fund balance retained that we have this year, that if it's not renewed, that would add 636,000 to that amount, bringing the total estimated return to 1.885 million. So that's before any encumbrances for projects from the current year into the next year, or for encumbrances typically that we may be making obligations for between now and the end of the fiscal year. So I will typically return to the board as we get into the new year with a listing of encumbrances to approve for the next fiscal year. So we basically just take that budget and roll it into the next year. So I don't know if the board, if you guys all have any thoughts on where we're at, where we'd like to be with fund balance retention, or anything generally. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have. I don't think you have to take action tonight if you want more, if it would be helpful to have more time.
Yeah, just one question I have is, so that 1.8 million that you're talking about, that's estimated, but $1 million of that would be moved to capital reserve, is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
So really, it's 1.8 minus the 1, so it's 800,000 is what we have right now.
Estimated without any action.
Right.
Yep.
As potential that would go back to the taxpayers.
Correct.
Okay.
Board members, thoughts on this?
Thoughts?
Dr. Hubner, it looks like you have some thoughts going on.
Pretty tired. Well, when Jeff says that we don't have to make an action on it now, I think waiting until the fall may be a good idea, just in case we have anything that comes up. Or
And what's the time that we have to decide on this?
I would need to have a definite so I can complete the DOE 25 state reporting forms, second, third week of August, at the latest.
At the latest.
yeah, so we need to make a decision now then.
Well, we have another board meeting this month.
Is there potential that something may arise that may change that figure that you would anticipate between now and August?
June 30th.
Or June 30th?
Even June 30th. Yes, I think as we get closer to that date, the gap closes in terms of risk or what could happen. I don't have to worry about a roof collapse due to too much snow, so that's helpful, but I don't want to predict what else might be out there. I always get a little nervous, and I get a little bit nervous to predict, bless you. But we do have some factors. We have had some things that have come up late in the fiscal year, which I have accounted for as part of this number already. And some of which we, since it wasn't unbudgeted, I'm hoping we can put into a grant. One was like a potential $30,000 obligation we may have related to some student services. So that is reflected in here. But
That's factored in today.
That's factored in today, and if we can put it into a grant, then that'll be a little bit more that's available. So, but yeah, we could have a number of things happen, which I'd rather not have happen.
Right.
I think it's pretty limited. We've got a couple of weeks, so.
You could have something where something in student services could come up that could be $100,000, $150,000. So.
I mean, typically every year we do vote on somewhere around that 2.5%. I mean, I don't have the exacts what we've done every year, but it's been around that $500,000 plus every year.
Unless there's been some odd year, like 60 swing. I think that was a year that we did 250,000, I believe, because we used a lot of different sources of funding for that $2 million project. So that was one year that we were a little bit lower on that.
I mean, for me, I think about, if something like the septics fail, it's big money. We do have the capital reserve, but we are aiming for the capital reserve for those classrooms that we know we're in dire need of. So I think it does make sense to make a vote tonight, in my opinion, on this, knowing that we've got an estimated. I don't think we need, in my opinion, I don't think we need to take the whole 2.5%. I think that we need to get something that, in case of those big ticket items, that we, are eyeing, like the septic, like if something happened to our roof. So, I'm not saying someone's going to get one. Yeah.
What was the rough estimate for the septic, if the septic?
About $500,000.
It's between 300 and $500,000, depending on.
I remember 300 in my head, but yeah.
So, I mean, I'd be comfortable with something like splitting this, because, if we look at it's 1.885, just saying let's split it and keep 400,000 as the fund balance retention, and that way we send back 400,000. If you guys want to do 500,000, I'd be comfortable with that also, but looking at what the board thinks. We don't? Right. All right.
Yeah, I'd rather have the 500 and then have a little cushion.
You want to make the motion, or? Yeah, whatever.
the motion's from, well, if you want to complete your motion.
Yeah. So the motion is to retain 500,000. All right. You got a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion on that?
Just in case something comes up, I would love to have the words up to 500,000 as part of that motion. Just in case.
Would you like to amend that?
Make a motion to retain up to $500,000 of this.
All right. Still want a second? All right. From Dr. Hubner, and any discussions? All approved? Thank you. All right. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, board. All right. Next, we've got Mrs. Tomaselli to come on up and talk about the ESSER2 enrichment grant.
Okay, so we are continuing to grow our summer programming and continuing to innovate Summer Learning Academy. This year we're merging it with ESY and kind of creating a more inclusive opportunity for 5 weeks. As we continue to innovate, along with that comes a need for finding funding for all of these projects. So the DOE, or actually the New Hampshire Department of Ed, has done a very nice job reallocating ESSER2 funds and redistributing them around the state. So they had a grant opportunity that came out a few weeks back called the Beyond School Enrichment Grant. I did look into it, but it is a competitive grant based on financial free and reduced lunch status, which we typically wouldn't. Okay, is that better? So it's a competitive grant based on free and reduced lunch status, so we typically in Hampstead wouldn't rank that high in the state. So I waited for the first, they encouraged us to apply, and so we were awarded just last week approximately $30,000 for programming that will be completed by September 30th, so I put our summer programming into it, that is rich in social and emotional learning opportunities. So with that money, we are using 11,000 of it at the middle school to conduct a week of training and hands-on learning with the UNH Brown Center. This is a research-based recreational program that comes on site, does team building, does empathy kind of training, and I've asked them to provide opportunities for our students to engage in restorative practices and restorative circles. So we've used our what's the other grant that we got for restorative practices? I can't think of the name of it. Our other money early, thank you. Our Promising Futures money trained the staff. We're going to use this money to kind of do our first round of official training for students. That cohort that signs up, and I would encourage families who are listening to sign up for the Summer Learning Academy programs. We have about 40 slots in that August 14th week for middle schoolers, and we have kids have already started to sign up, but those children that participate will be our first cohort of trained students that will then be sprinkled in advisories throughout the school next year. And that'll really help us with our restorative practices work. At Central School, we are using the money to purchase our Camp Invention modules, which are kits that the kids will use to do STEM activities, and they're loaded with all kinds of fun hands-on things. It'll help pay for some staffing for Camp Invention, and then also we're bringing in the Northeast Passage Trek program. These are people who specialize in recreational therapy, and they're going to help us learn to use the community garden, the fields across the street, some of our outdoor classroom spaces to implement nature-based play. And we're going to do that alongside Camp Invention games. So kids will do half of the morning will be nature-based play and gardening and outdoor recreational therapy. The other half will be team building, cooperative skill building games. So these programs are amazing opportunities. I'm excited that we're able to find grant money to fund all of these things. I just want to caution the board that, and we're not dipping into our budget or requiring a budget for this. When grant funding runs out, we have to get creative. So I just, want to caution the board that I will keep looking for grants and keep applying for them. I'm very optimistic that we qualified and were awarded a needs-based grant. The New Hampshire Department of Ed is redefining what they mean by high need, so I'm paying close attention to that.
Right. Yeah, that's my question is, this is the last year, this is the end of the ESSER funding, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, so I think it'd be good, my suggestion is that after this program is to understand what do we learn and what do we want to look at if we are to budget anything for something like this in the future.
That's right.
So it'd be good to have you come back, I'd say in the early fall, before we get into the budget season, so it's on fresh of mind of what's working, what's not, what do we want to anticipate, and what will those costs be? Thoughts, board members?
Somewhere Megan Malcolm is smiling about all the cool stuff that you're doing. So I appreciate you following through on that. So.
That program it's full. It's already at 20, so that tells me that within 2 days, it filled up very quickly. So there's definitely a demand for it and a market for it. What's really cool about the Northeast Passage program is that we've also contracted with them to do training, and those therapists, I should note, will be also on site here at the middle school Monday, July 10th and Monday, July 17th for the first day of the middle school programs with Field to Fork Farm. So we're utilizing them for our central school children in August, but they'll be here on site that Monday. The goal is to have them model with our staff outdoor recreational therapeutic activities, utilizing the spaces we have. So if middle school families are listening, they want to sign up for some of those outdoor opportunities, certainly. But we'll continue to find ways to bring these types of resources in.
Very good. All right. Thank you.
And if I could just add too that, we welcome community input and feedback in terms of how we utilize federal funding. So anytime folks in the community have any input, we'd love to hear that. And also information about all of our grant funding, including federal funds, is on our website. Gives you a nice breakdown of what the grant is, what the allocation is, and what we prioritize. So.
Very good. All right. Next on the agenda is the data governance plan. I have talked to Mr. Thompson about pushing this out, that I'd like to have some discussions lined up in the coming weeks. Mr. Giard will take part in that, as well as I'd expect Mr. Dion, Ms. Tomaselli, members of the community, Mr. Thompson, to go through some discussion points and then bring it back to the board after some more understanding. So,
absolutely.
Sound good? All right. Next, let me move some things around here, make sure I get everything. All right. Next is the 2022-23 Superintendent Eval Wrap-Up Report. So the board has completed the actions taken over the last few months, wrapping up in accordance with CBIR, evaluation of the superintendent. So before I read a few things on it, we did meet with Aaron Pellegrini and I did meet with Mr. Thompson actually this morning to go over the evaluation that was reviewed and approved by the board. I thought it was a really good discussion, besides talking about a lot of the accolades of what have happened over the last year, which everybody got to see tonight, what was presented by the staff on behalf of teachers and the community and the district. But I really enjoyed the discussion because we did talk about, I guess I was writing it down here, Mr. Thompson, it's really the 4 C's that you're really concentrating on. That's a 5th C, I guess. But and it was funny because the board had not disclosed to Mr. Thompson exactly what we were challenging him for next year. Another C, challenge. But Mr. Thompson had also written down things that he wanted to concentrate on next year, and they are almost a match for match. So it was good that we're on the same page, different ways of looking at it, but getting to the same goal. So for those in the audience and at home, the 4 C's that I took away from it is the community, communication, culture, and curriculum. Mr. Thompson acknowledged that there's more to be done with getting community involved and community brought back into the schools, as well as reaching out to more community members, that not only those that have students in the schools, but the ones that are going to have students or ones that no longer have students. Communication, we thought about the website and other ways to communicate clearly to teachers and clearly to parents, etc. The culture, making sure we're still growing a positive culture. We saw that again today, bringing some positive messages in the hallways, working central school and middle school, so it was good. And then curriculum, again, more that we talked about today. So I appreciated the frank discussions there. Just to close on what the board had decided was that last month the board voted to approve the superintendent's written eval per procedure CBIR. Additionally, the board voted to approve a 3.5% merit increase to Superintendent Thompson's salary for next fiscal year effective July 1st, 2023, as well as a 4% performance cash bonus payable to Mr. Thompson on July 1st, 2023, as allowed per his 3-year employment contract with the Hempstead School District dated March 2nd, 2021. So that was voted upon by the board in May and communicated to Mr. Thompson, and now able to disclose to the public from that point. Any discussions, comments from board members on any of that?
Somebody who's experienced a number of different administrators and superintendents and districts. You're doing a fabulous job, and one of the best things you've done is hire amazing people, and you say that often, so. Secret. Yeah, I really appreciate all of you and all the work you do.
Yeah. That is one thing we talked about this morning too, is that we look forward to that next year is really the first year under Mr. Thompson that he doesn't have someone on his leadership team that's brand new. So caution to you all that you all will be delegated to more and expect more of you all. But no, it's great that the team is bonding and getting cohesive and growing in the district. We appreciate the positive results for sure. Still a lot of work to do, as we know, and continue to work, so we don't rest on our laurels, but definitely appreciate it. So, any comments, questions? We're good? All right. All right. The fun part, policies second reading. So board members, there are 4 policies in your packets that we have done a first reading on, so this is for second reading. I'll read through them, and then we'll look to adopt, discussion, or not adopt. So the 4 policies that are in your packets are DAF, which is around the administration of federal grant funds. Policy DA, fiscal management goals. DBC, budget planning. And then JLCF, wellness. So take a minute here, as they have been reviewed on first reading. See if there's any further comments.
So when I was rereading it tonight, something, and I don't know where it is specifically, but what's the process for vetting who is somebody who could bid or vendor, like somebody that's a qualified vendor? I don't know how to quite explain it.
So any RFP or any bid that we put out that's responded to, we'll open, and we will go through, and typically the budget owner or the person that's put that RFP out will go through and do their due diligence on that vendor, on their capabilities. For federal grant purposes, when we pay with federal funds, there are a series of other requirements that we are under to be able to allow that vendor to work with us.
Okay.
To check them for, to make sure that they're not debarred from doing business with the federal government. There's just a number of other things, other steps we have to take.
Okay.
But typically we're looking at a number of factors before awarding, because we don't want to end up with something that, a contract that we have questions as to whether it can perform. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, good question.
Districts with more than 1 or 2 schools might also consider building level wellness committees. So I know part of the strategic plan is staff wellness, so have we considered putting building-wide wellness committees together?
Already have them.
They already exist?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And they meet regularly, both schools.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky as to what is sort of the district wellness and what's handled at the local building level. We're under the wellness policy that you're looking at. We're under federal USDA requirement to have a committee that addresses a lot of the issues that go along with receiving federal funds and dispersing federal funds and programmatic requirements. But the building level committees are much better able to address the needs of the building itself on a different level.
See, Jeff, that's where you could have come back and been like, let me look into that. And come back with you. Taken care of.
Done.
No, that's great. Thank you. I'll go ahead and make the motion to accept policies DAF, DA, DBC, and JLCF from second reading.
Second.
Second from Mr. Giard. Any discussion? All approved? Thank you. All right. Board comments and correspondence. Start to my far left, way over there, Mr. Giard.
I was able, and it was a pleasure to attend the One School, One Book forum at the Central School last week. Definitely an entertaining evening. Kids had a lot of fun animals. Just want to thank everybody that was involved and everybody that was there that partnered to make this happen, as well as the PTSA for their donations and for their volunteerism and part of what we experienced the other night. It was a lot of fun. My son continues to talk about it.
Very good. All right. I've got a few, because I don't know the last month when I wasn't here at the last meeting, but start down just from my notes. It was great to hear and see the letter from the restaurant that the 8th graders ate at, and the restaurant staff had sent a gift card for the students to use for their purposes, maybe an ice cream social, whatever it was. But I thought that was a really good testament to the parents and the community and staff of how they've raised and expect the students to act. So that was really great to see and hear. Let's see, middle school graduation is this week, so looking forward to that this Friday. I think it's at 6 p.m. Okay, good, got it in my calendar. I attended the HCS parade. That was a lot of fun. That's something I look forward to every year, and so glad we could participate in that. There was an HCS kindergarten kind of graduation today that a lot of parents were able to attend, including myself. That was fun to see how the kids sing and just play and act together. So there was a spring concert here a few weeks back by Ms. Gatz and Mr. Robbins, which was really fun and great. And I was also able to attend in May the New Hampshire Music Educator Association's Southeast District Chorus Festival, where we had, I think it was about 8-9 students between chorus and band, and that was sponsored or chaperoned by Ms. Gatz and Mr. Robbins and Ms. Wisecover and a whole bunch of other people that helped to facilitate. And it was really great to see all those students perform and represent Hampstead. So a lot going on and a lot to be proud of in Hampstead. Mr. Cabarrus.
I'll just invite anyone in the Hampstead School District or anyone in the community who wants to dunk me in the dunk tank to show up on June 24th, 5
and 8 p.m.
Between 5 and 8 p.m. You'll be able to dunk me in the dunk tank, and I'll be shivering.
And if it's not Mr. Cabarrus, I'll also be in the dunk tank, so that'll be fun. Carl, will you be in the dunk tank?
I already did the dunk tank at at the middle school where I was an administrator. Next year they want me to wear a suit when I do it though, so.
All right.
Been there. Yeah.
How about for you, Dr. Hubner? Any correspondence?
Else? No.
All right. All right, so we're going to move on to consent agenda.
Okay, under personnel report, I have one professional nomination of Sarah LaCroix, nominating Sarah to be the Hampstead Central School special education teacher / case manager.
I'll make the motion to accept the nomination of Sarah LaCroix for the HCS Special Education Teacher Case Manager. Discussion?
Great job finding special education people because it's not easy to find.
And somebody as great as Sarah LaCroix, so there you go.
Absolutely.
So congrats, early congrats, but any other discussion? All approved? All right, welcome Sarah to the team.
All right, excellent. And under the superintendent report, I know Mrs. Tomaselli talked a little bit about Summer Learning Academy, but I thought I'd turn it over to our Director of Student Services, who talked very briefly about our extended school year program for children with disabilities.
So we've been working very closely, Nicole and I have been working very closely with Sarah Boyd, who is the excellent job of incorporating some of the Summer Learning Academy activities and integrating them into the program. So we were able to offer what we call full programming to many of the kids. Thanks, Teddy. We were able to offer what we call full programming to some of those kids. In the past, we've done a lot of drop-in services where they've come in just for their reading or their math, and then they go home. We've been able to offer an approach where kids will come in around 8:30, they'll stay until about 11:30, they'll get their services, whether that's reading, writing, or any of the reading, writing, math related services, as well as incorporating into some of the Summer Learning Academy activities, such as Camp Invention modules. They'll be participating in the Field to Fork Farm. They'll also be participating in the rec therapy programming as well. So I just want to, thank Nicole for helping and supporting the integration of these programs, because it allows our kids to have an inclusive approach to all the programming, and not just for the remediation piece, but also for the enrichment piece. So we're very excited to be offering this, and our hope is, with feedback from at the conclusion of this program, to continue to provide a more integrated approach to our summer programming. Any questions? And I think one of the really cool parts of this is typically the UNH rec therapy program oftentimes is more for, they utilize that for students that have challenges, where we're looking at it from a different perspective and we're embedding it into our enrichment program and providing that, because rec therapy isn't just about, it isn't just about kind of the recreational side of things. It incorporates collaborative problem solving, and it really wraps in our restorative practices approach really nicely into it. And so we're kind of almost like a backwards approach by bringing in TREC and the rec therapy piece. So I really appreciate looking at all enrichment opportunities for all kids. Any questions?
And Mr. Dowd will give an update on the status of the 2022 audit.
Well, we do have a draft copy of the 2022 audit in hand. Looks good. I've sent comments back to the audit firm. They'll go through whatever review they need to. We're waiting for legal confirm to come through. We figured it'd be about June when we'd have that done, complete, and looks like it's on its way. So we're in good shape. So findings are consistent with what we previously discussed, involving fixed assets. I'm not sure if we'll have anything else, because I'm waiting for one more piece of it, but I think we're in good shape. So, and I'm scheduled to actually have them out for preliminary work on the 20th, next week from now. They won't start the actual audit, they don't think, for 23 until October-ish, in that time frame. But I'm pretty pleased to have them engaged and have them out so early. They'll do that preliminary work. So, okay.
And then I just wanted to highlight too, Jess talked about the extended school year program. So Hampstead School District was invited by the New Hampshire School Administrators Association to represent them at the last State Board of Education meeting on Wednesday, June 7th. So Nicole and I had the opportunity to go to Concord, We were asked to speak about our summer programming. The goal of the overall presentation, we were asked to present along with Bedford and Litchfield, was really to let the State Board of Ed know that in the summer, our schools are very busy places. And we were asked to highlight some of the work that we've done with our Summer Learning Academy, which again, as Nicole indicated, we continue to innovate with, and also the merging of our extended school year program as well. And so again, the focus on building community partnerships, community service, the Field to Fork Farm really has created an innovative program. There really is nothing like it, I think, that you're going to find if you look at summer programming, and it was nice to get that acknowledgement from the State Board of Ed. So I also just, I could probably sit here all night and tell you all of the wonderful things that are going on in our school as culminating events. The celebrations of learning, the National Junior Honor Society induction, NELM Scholar Awards, fourth grade step up. We had the one school, one boy, like we could spend all night. And I won't do that. I just want to say to all of the educators, thank you. I know I've had so many conversations with people in the last week. We're tired. I heard Dr. Hubner talk about the tank being empty, which is rightfully so where we should be at the end of the year. I just want to thank our educators, including our teachers, our support staff, our school leaders. It's been a really tremendous year. They've worked incredibly hard. They're tired for a reason. And so I thank you for all of the work that you've done. And with that said, that really concludes the superintendent's report, and I'll entertain any questions that the board may have. The one item, Mr. Chairman, that I know there typically has been discussion about is the end of June meeting, and I know that you may want to address.
Yep, there's a couple of things under other business. I'll bring up.
Awesome.
All right, so the first one I'd want to bring up to HCS is about the HCS building. We do plan on meeting with the contractor and others tomorrow to begin to start to wrap up what we expect cost, a bunch of discussion points. I know, unfortunately, I won't be able to attend, but Mr. Giard will be there, along with Mr. Thompson and Mr. Dowd and Dr. Cheney, Mr. Mackey, and a few others. So we'll look at what that discussion looks like, bringing it to the community. And I know we'll bring it to the building committee initially, and then bring it back to the board and to the community after. So we'll talk about what that timing looks like. And the reason why I'm saying what it looks like is because that's the next topic, is June 27th is our next board meeting. Typically, we forego that if we think that we don't have any business that we're going to have to wrap up at that point. The only thing I'd see that we could potentially talk to is the HCS building, but I think maybe we just talk about as a board how we want to communicate that out once we know a little bit more. So, Melissa, I don't know if we have to vote to not have that meeting on the 27th? Okay. Are we all under the same thought that as of right now we do not plan to have that meeting? Yes? Okay. So that's the second thing. Third thing, just want to say good luck and congratulations to Erin, who's not here tonight, who was at a orientation for her daughter at a university that her daughter's going to. So appreciate that Erin's putting her family first and not here. And good luck to her, as it is a highly stressful time. Fourth thing is communication that the board last month had discussed and is about actually Mr. Thompson and his contract. He is coming up into his final year of his contract, and the board has agreed to begin discussions and negotiations into extending that contract. So you all may be stuck with him longer. I hope that's okay. I know we are interested and we're beginning those discussions. And we will communicate that out to the public, I'd say by the end of the summer. We're not rushing into this. I think we're all on a good page, and we'll begin those discussions here shortly. So, unless there's anything to add to that, that's all we have under other business and old business. We do We are going to go into a non-public. We do not expect to come out of that with any actions or any votes. It is purely for discussion. So I would like to motion to go into non-public RSA 91A3 2 A and C at 9:13 p.m. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
All right. Melissa, can you take a roll call?
Mr. Giard?
Yes.
Dr. Hubner? Yes. Mr. Cabarrus?
Yes.
And Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going into non-public at 9:14 p.m. Thank you all very much.